This is Newark Today, WBGO's award-winning call-in show. We're discussing the issues affecting New Jersey's largest city. And now your host, Andrew Meyer.
The arts can be used as an engine to drive a city's economy, to connect with kids and better engage them with their general education, or used simply to improve the overall quality of life. On tonight's Newark Today, we're all about the arts, and you are a vital part of our conversation out there tonight. Are you an artist living in Brick City? Have some ideas about how to enrich the community through the arts? We welcome your phone calls tonight at 1-800-499-9246. You can also email us your question at newarktoday@wbgo.org. And there's also one more way to participate this evening. WBGO is more than just a great radio station. We have an art gallery here. And the opening party for the latest exhibit is just wrapping up. We've invited the guests to stick around, listen to the show in our performance space, and we'll be giving at least a few of them the opportunity to ask their own questions tonight, their arts-related questions. Promises to be an exciting conversation, but with just an hour to squeeze it all in, there's no time to waste, so let's get started. Let me introduce our panel of guests tonight. The head of the Newark Arts Council, Linwood Oglesby. Melissa Walker, who heads up Jazz House Kids, a community-based group providing musical, educational, and cultural programs to grade school students from diverse communities and more. And the leader of NJPAC, John Schreiber. Thank you all for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Linwood, I want to start with you. As the head of an umbrella organization providing advocacy to arts groups in Newark, how would you characterize the state of the arts? How many arts groups are there here? What sort of bang for the buck are they providing for the city?
Well, I think the state of the arts in Newark is strong. It's been growing continually over the past 10 or 12 years, or really longer than that. In fact, I think we can really, in all honesty, point to the arrival of NJPAC as really a turning point for Newark's arts community, as well as for Newark, the city at large. The economic return that has come along with the arts and with the emergence of NJPAC has been a real boon to the city. Arts right now, according to the last study that we did, are returning about $11 million a year to the state's economy, about half to Newark and about half to the state of New Jersey. So, we're a real economic engine in addition to in enhancing the cultural life in the way that we do.
In the interest of full disclosure tonight, WBGO has a representative on the board of the Newark Arts Council.
Absolutely.
But I think as we go forward tonight, you're going to hear that most arts organizations in Newark, if not all, are interconnected in one way or another. Next up this evening, Melissa Walker from Jazz House Kids. Congrats, by the way. You guys had a big event last night, fundraiser at Montclair State at the theater there, at the Castor Theater. Went well for you?
Thank you. It certainly did.
You're based in Montclair, and you serve the region, but you've had a big impact on kids in the Newark schools, haven't you?
Yes. Actually, Jazz House Kids got started partly here because of WBGO, and we the vast majority of our work is in Newark schools. We started with our programming in the schools, and we've just more recently, in the last 3.5 years, branched out to programming outside of in-school period, and so the biggest impact really has been at the largest community in Newark. So we are both an independent charter and public schools currently from K to 12.
And this comes at a time, unfortunately, when arts programs in Newark and really all over are threatened by shrinking school budgets.
Absolutely. And I think that's what you'll find with nonprofits in general, that they're bringing in really vital services. I think at the beginning of time, they used to be in what would be called an enrichment. It was meant to enrich a current program, to work alongside with an existing robust arts program. And I think what you will see and more of the trend is that they're coming in as the sole program, or coming in to create a program that is no longer there. And so you have nonprofits playing a role that was not the role it was originally intended to. Our role is not to replace a teacher.
Exactly.
We want a teacher who is in place. But that is really not what we're finding more and more, unfortunately.
John Schreiber, NJPAC. You're the big dog in the room. a question about arts and the economy. Even though you've only just joined the organization in the last couple of years, you certainly have the perspective of what it's been like for any arts group struggling to make it through the Great Recession. And even given your size at NJPAC, I can't imagine that the company has been immune from the economic woes of our time.
No, not at all. I mean, in 2008, when the recession hit, it hit NJPAC just as it hit, nonprofit arts organizations and commercial arts presenters. But, what we have found, in the past couple of years is that the audience is there. And if we program to them in a way that is diverse and interesting, that, the odds are pretty good that they'll come. I mean, I think what Melissa says is really true, and that is, while the commercial presenting scene seems to be on the upswing, funding of the arts on a federal and state and local level is something that is really challenged. So we are more dependent than we've ever been on corporate support, foundation support, in order to deliver arts learning experiences for kids. We're able to serve about 60,000 kids a year through all of the different arts learning programs that NJPAC delivers, but we couldn't do it without the support that we get from foundations, corporations, and individuals.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. We're all about the arts tonight, and we want you in on this conversation. You can join us at 1-800-499-9246. That's toll free, 1-800-499-9246. You can also email us your question at newarktoday@wbgo.org. One programming note, it's been a tumultuous few weeks for the Newark Museum. We'll also be joined by phone in our second segment by the chief curator of the museum to talk about the road ahead for one of Newark's oldest cultural institutions. One that hasn't been around quite as long, but is still marking a milestone tonight, Algira, which is kicking off a 30th anniversary celebration with an art auction, and we certainly congratulate them on that. John and Linwood, you were both over there. You just came over from their celebration. Linwood, what is the significance of a group like Algira? What have they brought to the community, and are there other groups around Newark who are doing what they're doing or following in their footsteps?
Well, Algira has brought prestige, really, in a really significant way. It's provided an opportunity for artists from Newark, but also from Newark, from across the area, to be able to exhibit and to be able to show and to have their work reviewed by the most serious art critics in the land. And therefore, artists seek out Algira as a place where they want to start their career, where they want to be exhibited, because they know that they are going to be taken seriously, because it is a serious contemporary art space. And really, my hat is off to Victor Davson, the founding director there, who, as you said, is celebrating this year 30 years. And, that's a real milestone that an organization, a local organization like that, has been around with one leader for that period of time, who's provided that kind of consistency and that kind of high quality over that period of time. So we really do want to applaud him.
They have been there for 30 years. And 30 years ago, you looked at this area, and it looked very different. We're at a really transformative stage here. We have Prudential about to build new buildings right across the park, right down the block from Algira. Very different than it was 30 years ago. Now, in terms of making a difference, turning around a neighborhood, how much of an impact can an organization like Algira truly have? I'll put this to you, John Schreiber, because we've seen what a difference NJPAC has made on this area.
I think it makes a tremendous difference. I mean, the fact that you have some of the finest artists in the world, as well as emerging artists, exhibiting their art in that space over that period of time has brought, hundreds of thousands of people to the downtown. NJPAC has brought millions of people to the downtown. The Prudential Center has brought, the Newark Museum has brought millions of people to the downtown. So the opportunity we have now, and you're right, we're really at a tipping point, is to turn a a variety of unique cultural institutions who have delivered audiences in a relatively siloed fashion the chance to create a real community. So with Prudential opening a new headquarters and having Military Park as the front yard, right? With NJPAC on the brink of, God willing, building a residential tower, that will have 230 apartments in it, with Panasonic opening the North American headquarters down the street, all of a sudden thousands of people are living and working in the downtown in a way that they haven't, in the past 40, 50 years. So there's a tremendous opportunity for revitalization of this downtown, a sense of not only a business community but a residential community, and that's going to build on itself exponentially.
We're always about making news here on Newark Today, John, and I'm going to put you on the spot here because the plans for a residential complex as part of NJPAC goes back to the James administration. I've attended many news conferences in my time here, trumpeting the fact that look what we're going
tonight, sir.
Look what we're going to be doing. Now, the most recent was a couple of years ago. Mayor Booker announced with fanfare at NJPAC that the Dranoff organization was going to come in and build this building. Now, I understand the recession has its realities, but are we any closer to seeing a shovel on the ground in what would be not just apartments, but also living space and working space, affordable working space for artists?
I believe we are closer, but unfortunately I can't say more than that right now, but I am optimistic that this will happen in my lifetime.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. Always got to try.
Retirement and working. Can we narrow it down a little bit?
I'm an old guy, too. I mean, right.
To get in on this conversation with your own question tonight, you can call us at 1-800-499-9246, 1-800-499-9246. You can also join the conversation by emailing us at newarktoday@wbgo.org. Tip of the hat tonight, Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District, which has been working very hard to bring back the neighborhood around Lincoln Park. They got a $250,000 grant from Art Place America for what it calls creative placemaking. And actually, Melissa, you're nodding your head, so let me get you in on this. What does it mean to a neighborhood like that to have a group like Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District really putting its energy into having the arts serve as a real economic engine for a comeback?
Yeah, I think it's really important that arts organizations can spread out through communities. I think the delivery of really strong, robust arts really still happens at a community level. And so I think the wonderful kind of triage that can happen here is that you've got NJPAC to be to represent the state and really represent just at a national level, but you still need to have those strong community arts organizations that can kind of satellite their work and bring in that community. And so I'm really excited to see what's happening at Lincoln Park, because I think that, again, if we can create a lot of hubs throughout Newark and throughout the state, then they can kind of look to NJPAC as kind of that umbrella. And so that's really exciting, and I think that's a new development. Yeah.
Linwood, quickly?
I'd like to weigh in on that also. And again, by way of full disclosure, I do serve on the board of the Lincoln Park.
We're all interrelated.
District at the same. But I also
what
want.
board don't you serve?
That's right.
But I just want
I'm going to ask him personally after.
And I've been there since its inception, and I just want to again applaud the staff there, because they've done a fantastic job with the work they're doing in Lincoln Park. And this grant that they've received is really just one of many that they've gotten over the past few years that are really helping to do what the arts do, and that is to reshape communities. The arts are drawing people into Newark. They're changing perceptions about Newark. People are looking at Newark anew and saying, this is a city that I can live in. And it's in large measure because of what's happening with the arts. The study that I alluded to a moment ago that we conducted with Americans for the Arts showed that in 2010-11, 2 million people visited Newark because of their plans to attend an arts or cultural activity here in the city. About half those people 1 million of them came from outside the city of Newark. So the arts are attracting people in. I mean, people who once said, oh, people won't go to Newark because, are now having to rephrase that because people are coming to Newark. Half the people who attended arts and cultural events in the city were Newark residents. But the important thing about that half who are outside the city is, as quote-unquote cultural tourists, they tend to spend more dollars in the city than local tourists. So they spend on average about $37 per person for every one of those cultural tourists that we can attract. And cultural tourists spend more dollars when they visit a city than your typical visitor who's coming. So the arts are doing its job. In that same period, it was shown that the arts contribute about $127 million to Newark's economy every year. We are a major industry in this city, and it's the work of NJPAC, the museum, all of these entities, the symphony orchestra, Algira, all of these are playing a big part in reshaping the city.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. To get your own question in for these great people who are with us tonight, you can call us at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. Another way you can participate tonight, we had an art gallery opening here at WBGO, and we have a few people who have been sticking around this evening. They're listening to the show in our performance space, and some of them have some questions this evening. The first one is actually the artist who is being represented in this gallery opening, Tia Jana. She is at the microphone and has a question for our panel. Tia, go ahead and fire away.
I take bones from leftover meals and create pretty much I give it new life. I give dead bones new life, and my exhibit is up right now at Jazz 88, and I want to know, how can a new artist like myself, really step out into the art world, the art fields in Newark and surrounding cities?
I'm happy to
Linwood Oglesby from the Newark Arts Council.
To that, because one of the things that we do, each year we host something called the Open Door Studio Tour in the fall of the year. And through that, literally thousands of artists have come to Newark and participated in these studio tours that we've done now for over 12 years. And we identify unused spaces for pop-up galleries. We identify commercial spaces that can be converted into temporary galleries. Some of these spaces have gone on to become permanent gallery spaces in the city. So I'd suggest that you reach out to us at the Newark Arts Council, and we'd certainly be happy to work with you to try to get you plugged in to some of the upcoming shows that we've got.
Thank you.
John Schreiber from NJPAC. By its very nature, you are the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. But is there any consideration to providing space, using some of the great spaces you have to also bring in the visual arts, the artists like Tia Jana?
Well, it's hard for us because we don't really we're not set up in a way that we can properly exhibit fine art. We do have one space in the Victoria Theater that exhibits art done by New Jersey school children, and we change those exhibits over on a regular basis. So over the course of the year, hundreds of New Jersey kids have their art exhibited at NJPAC. But mainly, we're literally a performing arts center.
And
I'd love to have a gallery, though. Maybe going forward, maybe in one of those spaces in the new building.
Exactly.
Right.
Sometime soon.
Yeah.
Melissa Walker, you're more about places than people than places, but what do you think about inclusion of these arts?
Well, I want to say that, we've been talking about arts as an economic driver, and I'm really in Jazz House Kids is really in the business of arts as an education and an achievement driver. And I think there's a conversation that we haven't had, and I think what I love about dollars spent in the arts is they really do double duty. So when you're spending money in terms of the economy, but you're going to spend money in terms of education, you're actually educating those kids who will then be spending money into that community later on.
That's right.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. When we come back, more in the arts, including the future of the Newark Museum.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
And welcome back to the program. I'm Andrew Meyer. Newark Today is more than radio. You can now watch the program as it's on. You can find our live video stream on our website at wbgo.org/Newark Today. And if you are watching us online tonight, you'll see that Mayor Booker is nowhere in sight. Instead, we have a great panel of guests all connected to the arts, and that's what we're talking about tonight. One element of the arts we haven't really touched on this evening is the Newark Museum. More than 100 years old and a tremendous cultural resource for the city. However, there's been some rough waters for the museum. Joining us by phone right now to talk about the museum is the chief curator, Ulysses Dietz. Ulysses, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
Like a lot of people who follow the arts in Newark, who are fans of the museum, my jaw dropped last Friday when I picked up the Star-Ledger and read that the longtime head of the museum, Mary Sue Sweeney-Price, was stepping down immediately. Now, she's had some health concerns. What drove her decision?
Well, Mary Sue, I've worked with Mary Sue my whole career at the museum, which is going on 33 years. And she had been looking forward to retirement, and I think the stress of the year has been maximum, as everybody knows, and she just felt it was the right time, and she felt she had a team in place ready to step in and sort of man the fort while after she retired. So the timing just seemed right, and so she went ahead and did it, and indeed we were there ready to step up.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. We've got Ulysses Dietz from the Newark Museum on the line with us, and he's only going to be with us for a short while, so if you've got a question about the museum, this is your chance right now. Call us at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. Ulysses, you're part of a team that's going to be leading the museum in the interim, correct?
Yes, indeed. Me and the museum's COO, Meme Omokbai, who was being honored at the Algira Gallery earlier this evening, right in Newark. She and I have worked together, again, through her whole time at the museum, and we're going to work together to move things forward in this transition.
One of the biggest challenges you're facing is one of money, an $11 million budget shortfall that's resulted in a number of layoffs. Is this as bad as it gets, or is the museum dealing with more systemic problems that are going to persist?
Well, the only systemic problem, really, that has been plaguing the museum over the last 3 years is the lack of money flowing in. It's been a sort of perfect storm. I mean, literally with Hurricane Sandy diverting charitable money for excellent reasons away from institutions like ours. But also there's a kind of donor fatigue out there in New Jersey, and museums are extraordinarily expensive places to run. They need huge amount of human resources, not just to do the programs, but to care for the collections. We have an enormous collection. Our collection is one of the top 30 in the country, and to take care of that takes a lot of people and time and money, and that's been the real strain on it. Everything our operations are still going ahead even at the reduced level they're going at, but it really is a matter of cash flow into the museum. We've depended on the city and the state for a huge amount of time, and we realize that everything is going to be shifting more toward the private sector.
What's going to be the effect on programming?
Well, we are going to do the best programs we can, but fewer of them. We did a tremendous amount. We offered a tremendous amount of programs for all sorts of age levels, families, individuals, out-of-town tourists, art scholars, all of that sort of stuff. and we're going to have to cut way back and focus on our sort of historical roots with education and with school groups and with family groups, and then try to mount key exhibitions that will draw in audiences to focus on art. And on top of all of that, updating and changing our galleries for the upcoming 350th anniversary of New Jersey next year. So we have a lot to do.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. We're talking about the arts in Newark tonight, and for just a few more minutes, we have Ulysses Dietz, who's helping to guide the museum in the transitional time following the retirement of longtime head Mary Sue Sweeney Price. Get your questions in here right now at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. Linwood Oglesby from the Newark Arts Council. Every arts and cultural group has struggled to make it through the Great Recession. The New Jersey Historical Society all but closed its doors several years ago. And the question is, are we going to start seeing this happen more and more at the smaller cultural groups? What's happening at the museum?
Well, the same things are happening with the smaller cultural groups. I mean, it is at least as difficult for those organizations to raise the dollars that we need in order to keep their doors open. So we're all facing that same donor fatigue that Ulysses referred to. There's really a relatively few and thankfully very supportive foundations in and around the area, and they've dug deeply to try to make sure that the small organizations as well as the larger ones have been able to get through this recession. But again, we're all facing that same, and we really need that support from our donor community. The state has done a great job in maintaining level support for the arts over the past couple of years, but we really need to see as the economy improves, we need to see a return to the pre-recession levels of funding there. I know that would be extremely important to the museum because it would hopefully allow some of the resources that were previously available to them to be available again, and it would also allow for some of the smaller organizations who have been underfunded for a very long time to maybe begin to get a little bit more out of that. But we really need that support from the state. And we need local support also. Our local government has really not been able to support the arts in the way that many local governments across the country, cities our size, some of the same problems that we're facing, are doing. And we've got to be able to form a partnership with our local government, and they have to step up and recognize the contribution that we are making to the city, to the lives of our people, that we are part of the solution to the issues that it is facing. But in order to be able to be that and to do that, we need funding.
Melissa Walker from Jazz House Kids. Has your group been experiencing donor fatigue?
Well, I think we all have to really watch that. We talk about cannibalizing our efforts. We certainly look at that. We've had a really busy year at Jazz House, for example. It's something that we pay close attention to. I think, fortunately for our organization, we've been in a growth spurt, but I think that's mainly because the organization has really picked up steam as it has found its voice, and it has found the niche that it can really work in and really add value. So I think we are an organization that you are seeing growth. But I think as more money is being diverted to STEM pursuits instead of what I'd like to see as STEAM with the arts,
exactly.
We are kind of concerned with that. And we are doing things to look for fee-for-service programming, very, very important. About a third of our budget comes from that. That's something that we've developed over the last 5 years, as well as really diversifying and really trying to get our message out to individual donors. So we've been looking at this strategically for some time because we felt that we could not just look to foundations, for example. So we've really diversified our portfolio, and I think that's one of the reasons for our our success. I mean, it's hard won, so I don't want to sound like it's more than that, but I think it's because we have really diversified in as many ways as we can.
It's also because Melissa works 27 hours a day. That's part of it, too.
That's part of it, too.
John Schreiber from NJPAC. This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. To get in on this conversation tonight, you can call us at 1-800-499-9246. It's all about the arts tonight, folks. 1-800-499-9246. Ulysses Dietz, Chief Curator at the Newark Museum and part of the transitional leadership team there. I want to give you one last word here. Despite the rich history at the museum, the tremendous private collection that you have, and some great programming, how optimistic are you at this time? It's got to be really tough.
Well, I'm totally optimistic. It is very tough right now. This is the toughest year I've experienced in all my time at the museum. But, at bottom, we're a very strong institution with an incredible staff in spite of the cutbacks, and we're going to keep moving ahead, and it's going to get better from now on.
Ulysses, we have one call coming in about attending the museum. I want to get to you before you leave us. Paula from Rahway is joining us on the program tonight. Paula, welcome to New York Today. What is your question this evening?
Yes.
Paula, fire away. We have Ulysses Dietz on the line. You had a question about getting to the museum?
Yes, I love the museum. I just want to get there, and I think the best thing to do, could you please have a shuttle bus from the Newark Penn Station to Newark Museum?
That's a very good question, Paula. Thank you very much. Ulysses, Linwood Oglesby, John Schreiber, Melissa Walker, what about the idea of an arts shuttle in Newark? I mean, we have the arts tour, the walking tour, for the gallery tour in the spring, but wouldn't the arts in Newark be better served by having some sort of shuttle?
We have the light rail.
Exactly.
And the light rail can get you from Penn Station to NJPAC to the museum to, any number of places in the downtown. So I would say to the caller, check out the light rail, because you will find if you get off at Penn Station and you get on that light rail, you're going to be at the Newark Museum in minutes.
Exactly.
Absolutely,
I was going to say, Ulysses, John just sold the light rail for you.
Well, and I got to say, the museum is 3 blocks south of Broad Street Station, and I've taken the train every day into Newark. I don't drive in. I take the train, and it's the easiest commute on earth. So getting to the museum, getting to downtown Newark is a very easy thing.
Ulysses Dietz, Chief Curator at the Newark Museum and part of the transitional leadership team at the museum. Thank you so much for joining us on Newark Today, and good luck towards the future.
Thank you. You're welcome.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. We're talking about the issues that affect life in Newark, and tonight it's all focused on the arts. To get in on this conversation, you can email us at newarktoday@wbgo.org, or you can call us at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. Linwood Oglesby from the Newark Arts Council. Paula brings up a very important point, and we've touched on this already, the perception about Newark versus the reality. What can your group, as an umbrella organization representing the arts, do to better get out the accurate information about what things in Newark are really like?
Well, marketing is certainly important. But again, I want to go back to the point that John was making and reference the previous caller. The arts encourage feet on the street, which I think is very important in a city like Newark. It encourages people to get out and to explore the city by virtue of going to the various galleries and other art venues around the city. And in so doing, they're passing retailers, restaurants, they're engaging with people. It's creating the kind of city that people want to live in, where they can interact with their environment. So one of the things that we find when people come, whether they're artists or visitors who come for the studio tour, for example, one of the things we find that they like is that Newark is a walkable city. And that you can move around the city and get to the places that you need to get to with relative ease. So again, one of the things that the arts is doing is to help to dispel the notion that you can't get around Newark, that Newark is not a safe city. Artists go where others, maybe fear to tread. And oftentimes the places that they go are the places that new life crops up in cities like Newark. So the fact that you've got artists here in this area around Military Park, around the museum, down Halsey Street, at the other end of town at Lincoln Park, and along the way, galleries like Solo's Project House, Index Gallery, again, just across the street. All of these things provide a reason for people to move through the city and to go from one place to the other and to have that kind of interaction. And I think that's the kind of city that we want.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. It's all about the arts tonight, and we welcome your participation in this conversation. You can join us by calling us at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. Jonathan is joining us on the program right now. Jonathan, welcome to Newark Today. I understand you have a question about NJPAC this evening.
Well, yes, thank you, Andrew. My company is called Flying Ship Productions, and we produce original musicals for young audiences. And we've performed a number of times at the Newark Museum as well as the various libraries in Newark. And we used to do, 12 to 15 shows a season in the Newark region. And currently we're down to maybe 2 or 3 presentations a year. And I'm under the impression that this is all due to funding. I'm wondering what you foresee in terms of having the funding return to, say, the 2007 levels.
As it relates to what?
To bringing theater and music into the facilities in town.
We are, the good news for us at NJPAC is that we are growing our annual presentations significantly, over the past couple of years. This past year we did 35% more events at the Art Center, and I anticipate that we'll do the same increase in number of presentations in the 13-14 season that'll start in July. So we're really bullish about the audiences, and we believe that if we're smart enough to program the things that people want to see, that they'll show up. So it sounds like you have an interesting company. I'd love to learn more about it. So, feel free to be in contact with me.
How should Jonathan get in touch with you? Where should he reach out?
He could just call me at the Art Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
The collaborative process. Let me build on what Jonathan asked you about. Thank you, Jonathan. How much do you encourage that? How much is from within, and how much is it really working with groups like Jonathan's?
Well, I'm not familiar with Jonathan's group. Maybe some of our folks in arts education are, but I'm not, and I apologize for that. But collaboration is really, I think, at the heart of where the Art Center is heading. So, I'm really proud that we are in a conversation right now with Melissa and with Jazz House Kids to work with us on our jazz program that we're very proud of and have been operating for many, many years. But I'm a big fan of the work that Melissa has done over the last 11 years, and so we're talking about ways that we might work together. We produced a festival of Jersey dance companies, over the past couple of years, where, about a dozen different Jersey dance companies performed. Similarly with New Jersey-based theater companies. New Jersey is a remarkably arts... Ooh, wait a minute. We got the news coming in?
Nope. Still you. We got 50
I'm the news.
You got 50 seconds.
Okay. My point is that New Jersey is a remarkably rich state for arts organizations, and NJPAC has the opportunity and I think the obligation to, as much as possible, turn the volume up on the work that's being done by many of those different companies. So that's something we relish.
You're listening to Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. We are talking about the arts this evening. We have a great panel with us. John Schreiber from NJPAC, Melissa Walker from Jazz House Kids, and Linwood Oglesby from the Newark Arts Council. And, of course, we want you part of this mix, just like Jonathan this evening. You can call us at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. 9246. You can also email us your question at newarktoday@wbgo.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Andrew Meyer. Newark Today is on Facebook. Stay up to date about what's coming up on the next show. Continue the conversation from this one. Just stay connected to us at facebook.com/Newark Today. Normally, this show is all about politics. Tonight, it's about the arts. But even though Mayor Booker is not with us this evening, we can't avoid the subject altogether. The mayor makes a big deal out of going out and raising private money for a multitude of purposes here in the city. Crime fighting, education, and if I'm not mistaken, even the libraries. But I've heard grumbling, I won't name names, they're not in this room, that the mayor has done next to nothing for the arts in Newark. Linwood Oglesby, you were starting to touch on this earlier. I'm putting you on the spot here. Should the mayor be doing more for the arts and culture in Newark, and if so, what?
Absolutely. You know, I'd love to see the mayor really take the arts on as one of his cause célèbre. When the mayor was running for office some years back, you know, he pulled together a group of us to talk about the role that the arts would play in his administration. And unfortunately, I mean, we all know what happened with the economy, and we all know the depth of difficulties that the city has faced with its in terms of the economy and his capacity maybe to be able to deliver on some of those things that we had hoped to see. But, you know, as he's now preparing his exit plan, I would really be delighted to see him, you know, really step up and say, you know, this is one of those things that I had hoped to do more for during my terms here in the city, and I'm going to devote a sizable share of my attention now to creating a legacy through supporting the arts.
Whether it's with this administration or the next one, whoever it is, do the arts need an art czar within city halls, an advocate within that building?
Well, we certainly advocated for that at that time, and that was one of the things that we had certainly hoped would happen, that there would be a person there. I don't know if we'd call them a czar, but that there would be someone there. And I think we all knew then and believe now that the mayor really has the arts in his heart and understands what the arts currently do in the city and understand what they are capable of doing, because he travels around the country and around the world. So, you know, anyone who travels at all, sees the role that the arts play in our cities. I think one of the things that has happened is that, because of the success that we've had with some of our major institutions, maybe there has been the sense that, well, the arts are okay, and I can focus on some of these other entrenched problems that we all understand. But I think what we're seeing now with the museum, and you mentioned the Historical Society, and certainly with others, is that the arts are not okay. And if they are not cared for, if they are not nourished, then they will go away also. And our
take with them, what was that figure?
Will crumble.
100 million?
$127 million
a year
is generated by arts activity just here in Newark alone. So,
John Schreiber, you've been nodding your head pretty vigorously in agreement. Let me get your 2 cents on the matter.
Well, I mean, I think the arts are the heart and soul of any great city, and Newark has at its heart an art museum that is one of the world's, not just the country's, but one of the world's great art museums. in Los Angeles, when the Los Angeles Museum of Art was in trouble, Eli Broad is a great philanthropist, stepped up and made that museum whole. Art museums don't have the same opportunity that the Prudential Center has or NJPAC has to increase earned revenues by putting shows on sale and getting people to show up. Art museums are much more dependent on philanthropy and corporate support. So my great hope is that, the mayor has been so successful in bringing economic development to the city. My hope is in that success, so he will also find success in bringing philanthropy for the arts to the city. When one sits across the table from Cory Booker, it's really hard to say no. So I agree with Linwood. My great hope is that, especially as it relates to the Newark Museum, that some philanthropy can come in to make the museum whole, because without that museum as part of the vital center of the arts universe of this city, we are much, much poorer.
Yes. And if I
Melissa
can add
Walker.
to that, I think, John, to your point, if we stop looking at arts as an isolated activity and see that it is part of the overall solution, and from the education of our young people, the arts need to be they need to be sitting at the table in a robust way. And I think that's being lost in this application. And so what I was saying a little earlier is that if you have more kids graduating and more kids going to college, we have more kids coming out with a higher income. If you have more kids that now are voting, young people, and there's a robust, a robust connection to arts engagement, a high level of arts engagement, and the economic activity of the people who come out. And so it's really vital that conversation happen, and I think we're really missing something. And there was a really tremendous study by the NEA in the last year that really pointed. It was a longitudinal study that took in about 4 different organizations and really looked at the achievement. That's what I'm talking, that achievement driver. And so if you want to talk about school reform, which is a major issue in this city, then arts need to be a vital conversation. So and then that's also going to impact, the tax dollars that go in and the revenues, et cetera. And so I think that the arts plays, that's what I'm saying, the double duty. There's so many ways that the arts talk about us as our humanity, bring people to the neighborhood, educate our people, bring a greater future. And so to have them absent seems just almost puzzling for a logical sense.
Today at the Art Center, we had 1,800 public school students from Greater Newark Public Schools, and they came and they saw the film Lincoln. They had studied the curriculum around the 13th Amendment for 2 months in advance. Clem Price, the great history professor from Rutgers, and Lonnie Bunch, who's the director of the
African American Museum
at the Smithsonian, spoke to the kids. It was a remarkable 3 hours. Those kids were entranced by that movie. When the 13th Amendment got passed by Congress, they all cheered. So the question is, how many Spielbergs were in the House today? How many future Spielbergs are in the House today? How many civil rights lawyers were in the House today, right? How many kids' lives were enhanced? A lot. How many kids' lives were changed? Maybe a few, by virtue of that experience. So, we have a school superintendent who loves the arts. She was an actor, before she was an educator. So I'm very optimistic about the future of the arts in Newark and the arts in the Newark Public Schools.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. If you want to get your arts-related question into our guest this evening, don't wait. We have just about 10 minutes to go, and the show will be over before you know it. To get in on the conversation, you can call us tonight at 1-800-499-9246. That's 1-800-499-9246. John Schreiber from NJPAC, you mentioned how many young Spielbergs were in the audience today, and I want to ask you a question that's related to that. One that actually can also pump a lot of cash into the local economy, the movie business. We've been seeing a lot more film and TV production. You came from the movie business before taking over at NJPAC. And actually, You even got America's Got Talent to broadcast from NJPAC. What's your overall sense of how well the city is doing in its endeavor to attract this sector of the arts to Brick City?
Well, I think we're doing okay. I think we can do better. We were really pleased to have America's Got Talent in the house last year.
Are they coming back?
No, they're going to Radio City. And I mean,
do you feel snubbed?
It's hard to feel snubbed with the most famous theater in America. We're pretty beautiful, but they're pretty beautiful too. And the other thing that they had to offer was a tremendous TV tax credit that the state of New York delivers to productions. We have a tax credit, but it's relatively small. And my hope is that as time goes by, that will change. If we are able to do that, our prices in New Jersey, in terms of venues and labor, are certainly a lot cheaper than they are in New York. So I see a future there. And my hope with the Arts Center is that we become a broadcast center as time goes by, and that's something we're working on in our strategic plan. And I like that idea for a variety of reasons. One is the stuff that happens on our stages is really unique and special, and it should be able to be enjoyed by more than 2,800 people or 500 people on a given night. And the other thing is we have an opportunity with arts education to take performances and master classes and teaching opportunities and not only give them to 100 kids, but give them exponentially to thousands of kids by virtue of distance learning and broadcast. So I'm excited about that possibility. I think it will come true in the next several years, the next few years. And I think the possibility of more TV and film happening in our region is pretty strong.
Linwood Oglesby from the Newark Arts Council. What's the payoff? Have you tracked what film and TV production have actually brought into Newark?
That's really not one of the things that we looked at, and it really is not in...
But I can actually give you a number, because I can give you an AGT number. We did a study based on last year, and they're coming into Newark. We learned that the positive economic impact to the state of New Jersey was $68 million in additional revenues, right? Based on the show.
That's no small amount of money.
No, it's significant. Yeah.
This is Newark Today on WBGO and WBGO.org. We're talking about the arts tonight on the program. One area of the arts we haven't really spent a whole lot of time talking about tonight, and there's a whole lot more I'm afraid we probably won't get to, but I want to ask about arts in public spaces. All arts, it would seem that compared to our neighbors 12 miles away in New York City, there's just not that much of it to be had. Is there a public arts component of development in Newark? And if not, should there be?
Are you talking about visual or performing?
Visual.
Public.
In the public space.
Newark actually passed an ordinance about 10 years ago, as they have in many cities across the country, Percent for the Arts. Philadelphia was the first and has one of the most robust public art programs in the country. That legislation would set aside 1% of all new construction dollars in the city for public art projects. Unfortunately, that has not been realized. But that's really how those projects get done, whether it's in New York City or in Philadelphia or Chicago or otherwise. In fact, we are on June 22nd, as a part of a professional development day for artists, hosting a forum on public art. And we will have a representative from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, from New York City's Percent for the Arts program, from New Jersey Transit's public art program, along with several artists who have participated in creating public art here in Newark and in other places, to address just that question. Because again, it's very important. Public art inspires and it lifts our views of ourselves and about our city, and for other people who are visiting the city as well. So it's very important, a very important element of any city's development.
Especially with so much development going on. Earlier in the program, we talked about Panasonic coming in, Prudential, which has always been a major champion of the city of Newark. They're building new. In fact, Military Park, which is right at the hub of where we are, NJPAC, WBGO, Prudential. There's supposed to be this development that's going to be happening, this redevelopment. The same guy who did Bryant Park in New York City Mayor Booker keeps saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's
You know
coming.
what? I really think it's coming. Again, I can't tell you an exact date because I don't know it, but I do believe it's coming sooner rather than later. And when that park is refurbished and when that park begins to get programmed, I think there's an opportunity not only for public art, but for regular performances and an activation of that park, a la Bryant Park, that will bring thousands of people into the downtown who wouldn't normally go down except for a special event at NJPAC or the museum or the Rock.
So you can't really talk about when it will start.
That becomes a public square.
But definitely, we're talking about arts as being a component of a reinvigorated military park.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've said to the folks who are doing that renovation that we would love to program. You know, we do Sounds of the City in the summer, where 4,000 to 6,000 people on a given night will come out. Well, gosh, I would love to put that into Military Park, and then all of a sudden there's picnic blankets and 10,000 people and much more room to stretch out.
One last question, I think. We may try and get another one in here. And I don't want to be self-serving since WBGO is a jazz station, but it again goes to talk about the interconnectedness that we in the arts all have here in Newark. NJPAC recently announced the details of the second annual T.D. James Moody Democracy of Jazz Festival, of which WBGO is a partner. Not only that, but Christian McBride, who was artistic director of last year's festival, has been named NJPAC's jazz advisor. Melissa Walker, Christian's your husband. I guess my point is not just that it's a small world, but it is so critical for arts groups to realize that we should all be working together, not at cross purposes. And Linwood, is this a message that's not always heard?
Well, it's not always heard, but again, an example you just mentioned last fall, we hosted Endless Arts October, where you had NJPAC, you had the Dodge Poetry Festival, you had Open Doors Studio Tour, all working together as one event where we could promote the city and promote its venues and promote arts and cultural activity throughout. So that's one example of ways that we are communicating and that we are working together.
John Schreiber?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I'm happy about, above and beyond snagging Christian to be our jazz advisor, is, well, we have Darth Ann Kirk,
WBG's own, WBGO's own
girl.
Yep.
And we've doubled the number of Darth Ann's Place jazz brunches that we're doing next season. Christian is curating a series of events. Melissa is doing a free day, family day of jazz during the Moody Festival with Jazz House Kids and our team at NJPAC Jazz Ed, Arts Ed. So this collaboration is, to me, that's what it's all about.
Last word to you tonight, Melissa. Your group, Jazz House Kids, always been big on collaborations.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's at the heart of jazz, is really the collaborative process. And so I think it's a natural to happen. I mean, last night's performance with an 87-year-old and a 16-year-old talks about that we don't see any barriers to that collaboration. And I think when we talk about some of the difficulties that arts organizations are having, it is important that we come together and we leverage each other and we amplify the dollars that are being spent. And so we can say to the donors that your work is being amplified because Jazz House, if you invest here, we're going over to the PAC. We're coming to BGO. Yeah. We're working with, exactly. We're going to work with visual arts. We're going to work with dance and theater. I think that's a natural to the arts, and I think we're going to see more of that.
And that's all the time we have tonight. I want to thank our guests tonight, Melissa Walker from Jazz House Kids, John Schreiber from NJPAC, and Linwood Oglesby from the Newark Arts Council. Also earlier this evening, Ulysses Dietz from the Newark Museum. Our crew tonight on the show, on the phones, Katie Colinari. In our performance studio with our live audience, Doug Doyle. On the board, David Antoine. Technical oversight tonight by David Townsend. And running everything in the control booth, our producer, Monica Miller. Newark Today is a production of WBGO News. You can find a podcast of tonight's show, along with past shows on our website at wbgo.org/Newark Today. I'm Andrew Meyer. Join us next month for the next Newark Today. This is WBGO Newark.